The person that you trust to sell your home may be the reason why you're losing money on it. So it is important to know what they leave out in the conversation because that may mean more money in your pocket. Here are the things that some listing agent will intentionally leave out or never bring up during a listing presentation, and also things that you should ask when you are selling your property. If you haven't met, my name is Tsai. I've been in the real estate industry for almost 2 decades. Last year, our group sold around 1,000 properties, volume at around $1 billion. In this video, I'm gonna share about the 5 things that I see some listing agents leave out of their listing presentation that you should know. I see that sometimes agent will intentionally list it really low to try to generate multiple offers for a fast closing. Sometimes listing too low and selling it too quick, it actually may mean that some people, they may see your property and they like it, but they don't even have the time or opportunity to go see it because they may have to work that day or they may be busy that weekend. So sometimes you don't want to sell your home within the first day or 2. Sometimes I see that a property should be worth at, let's say, $1 million, and the agent will intentionally list it a little bit lower, let's say 800 or even 700. And before the entire market sees the home, they generate offers in like $725, $750, maybe even $800,000. And the agent would tell the client to take the offer, especially if it's their own client. Unfortunately, it is just what it is, So I always tell client, you don't really have to absolutely take the first few offers, especially if you list it really low or under market value. It's good to look at the offer that you got, like how many you got, the range that you got, and obviously communicate with a truthful and honest agent so they will give you the pricing strategy so you're not listing too low and then selling it too quick before the general public sees the property. So keep in mind, it is your property, so you can make the decision whether or not you want to take the offer or not. Always ask for the full comparative market analysis so that way you know what's the price of your property based on what's being sold and what's currently on the market to make a educated pricing so that way you don't undersell your property. And keep in mind, it is your property, so the listing price, it should be a discussion between you and the listing agent to price it strategically, that way you don't undersell your home. Number 2, the compensation structure. So as you know, in 2004, August 17, NAR had a lawsuit where the commission structure is very different compared to before. It used to be the seller pays both sides, but right now both sides of the commission are negotiated separately. So some buyers, they will specifically go talk to the listing agent and see how much they offer on the compensation to the buyer. Although some seller wants to offer, some seller don't. Based on my experience, most sellers still offer a compensation. So just keep in mind, some buyer's agent will steer their buyers to listings that's offering a higher compensation because maybe they just are lazy to negotiate for the compensation, or they don't want to go back to the buyer to ask for the difference, or maybe just the buyer doesn't want to pay. So whenever you're reviewing offers, make sure you communicate with the listing agent based on what you're trying to accomplish. I always recommend to look at the net as far as how much you're gonna get out of the sale and not focus just on the compensation. Some listing agent, they don't want to help the buyer's agent at all to negotiate for their behalf on their compensation. Some listing agent, they just want to talk to the seller. They charge whatever percentage, let's say 2.5% or 3%. And then they go, whether or not the buyers gets paid or not, that's up to the buyer. But some listing agent, they won't have this conversation with you to still, sometimes it makes sense to pay compensation. So that's something that listing agent may not tell you because they kind of just don't really care about what the buyer agents are coming from. And my perspective is look at the whole big picture. If you really don't want to pay commission, I understand, totally respectable. But let me give you an example. Let's say if an offer come in at $1 million, not asking for any compensation from the buyer's behalf, versus another offer coming at $1.1 million, but they're asking for let's say even 3% buyer compensation. Which one would you take? If we do the simple math, it would make more sense to take that offer at 1.1 because the commission would be, let's just say 3%, like $33,000. You will still be netting more than just selling it to that buyer that's not asking for any compensation. So that's some conversation that some listing agents don't want to have it with you because they don't want to feel uncomfortable to ask you to consider buyer's compensation. And keep in mind, you have every right to negotiate any compensation that you're willing to pay. Again, it's not a must, it's totally negotiable. Number 3, they know which repair matters, but they don't tell you because it's just quicker. They want you to sell as is and not to do any repairs so they can get it sold quicker and get paid quicker. Obviously, case by case, some property, yes, selling as is, but not all of them are like that. But I do know that some agents always just recommend the seller to sell as is because the buyer can do their own work. Unless your property is a complete fixer-upper and you don't want to do anything to it, then that's totally understandable. But the truth of the matter is, out of 10 properties that I see, 9 of them is not like that. So I always recommend the seller to do the important repair where, let's say, if you have to invest $5,000 back to your property, but you can gain another 10, 20, 30, even 50 grand back because you did those repairs. Yeah, the number, I'm just giving you a figurative number. It could be putting in 20 grand and actually selling it for 50 grand more. One example that we have is that there was a property before repair, I would say probably is worth $600,000 plus or minus 25,000. And we recommend the seller to do repair. And they did put in about 30 grand to remodel the kitchen, part bathroom, the painting, the flooring. And rather than selling at 600 or 625, they sold for $750,000. So if you just look at the repair return on investment, they put in 30 grand, but they got 150. So that's 500% return. In that situation, definitely do repairs. And we know companies that can help you actually remodel the place first, and then you can pay at close of escrow. That's also one option that we have. And so just if you have properties like that, let us know and we'll give you all the resources that we have. That way you can know all of your options. But some of the important maintenance that I would say before you sell the property would be leaking, any safety issue, utility. I would say roof definitely, and any foundation issue. AC too, if it's broken, I recommend repair it because it's gonna be on the inspection report anyways. And very, very likely the buyer is gonna come back. Unless if you list it at a really lower price and you're telling the buyer, I'm not gonna do any repairs. So definitely before you list the property, walk through with an agent or even like doing an inspection. In NorCal, it's actually a standard practice where they do the whole inspection report and they give it to the buyer, be like, hey, here's the inspection report. We got it done or we didn't do it, but these are the things that you need to anticipate. So this way the buyer, some of them, they will remove their inspection contingency before they open escrow. But in SoCal, it's a little bit different. It's not really a standardized practice, but we do see that sometimes. Most of the time, we see that buyer just place their offer. In SoCal, it's more like the buyer will put in their offer, and then after they put in their offer, then they will do their inspection, and they may or may not ask for repair. And sometimes, let's say if the property was in escrow before, the buyer, you can just give them the inspection report from the previous buyer. Typically, the buyer may take it and they may still do their inspection. But regardless, things that the agent won't tell you is to do that walkthrough, perhaps even do that inspection. So just keep in mind, things that they don't tell you upfront will likely show up in the inspection report anyways. Number 4, days on the market actually may hurt you more than you think. The longer your house sits on the market, the more the buyer is gonna think something is wrong with the property. And some agent may downplay this issue with you because there's this thing called the secret agent, or we kind of joke around call it the PPP agent. So some agent, they will put the home on the market and then they will put a sign in the front and they will hope and pray that it sells. So definitely when you hire an agent, ask for their plan of action, like what are they gonna do to get your home sold? Because some agents, if they don't really do much, they just put it on the market and pray that you sell. They sometimes can get nervous to talk to you, or they may not even talk to you after they put the home on the market. And after like a month or two, it's not really selling or no showing, then they will come back to you and ask for a price reduction. They don't really monitor or update you about what's happening in the market or the feedbacks from the buyer or the buyer agent. And if you don't know that, and if you're busy, or they just tell you, they're doing what they can, they don't really monitor the days on the market, it will actually hurt your listing. Because like I said earlier, the buyer may think, hey, how come average days on the market is 30 days, but yours on the market for like 75? Like, what's wrong with it? Because typically, if the home is not sold within 30-40 days, there are a couple of reasons. It could be the pricing, it could be the marketing, it could be the location of the property, it could be the accessibility, but the buyer can see the property. Because sometimes tenant occupy, or sometimes the seller, they want to keep it really low key and they don't really want to actually cooperate with showing the property. So those are typically the reason. But there's a saying, there is no such home that cannot be sold. If a home is not sold, it's typically due to the price. And obviously, like I said, the communication of the agent and the professionalism. Because if the agent really know the market, doing their work and communicating with the seller, the home should be sold, and or action should be taken on a weekly basis to actually get the home sold. Number 5, the first offer can be the best offer. And I don't know how many times I've seen this. Out of the property that I have sold, there were like 30% chance, 30 some percent chance first offer is actually the best offer. Obviously, it could be after countering the first one, but usually based on what I see, the first agent that bring the offer, especially they have good communication with the listing agent. Typically, if they're communicating well, because early buyers, usually they are quite motivated. They're a little bit less fatigued. And your home is new, so everything is quite new for them, and they're excited. They actually want to move forward. But I see some listing agent, they want to hold off. They tell the seller, hey, wait, and let's wait for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or whatever to try to get more buyers. But just understand that waiting too long, the first buyer, they may walk away, or they may see something better or something different and have a second thought on buying your property. I know this may sound a little bit conflicting with the first message that I say, don't take the first offer. No, I'm telling you to take the first offer. I'm not telling you to take or not take first offer. I'm just giving you situations. And I would say it really depends on how much you price your property. The first scenario is if you list way too low than the market, then you wanna give it a little bit time. I'm not saying like, wait for a month whatsoever, but maybe wait for like a weekend or two, because you have some room for the buyer to see your home, and then it may or may not bid over what the market value is because you list much lower, right? But in this situation, let's say your home is worth $1 million, you list it at $1 million or somewhere around there. And then you got a first offer, it's around that price, which is based on your anticipation. And then it's a cash offer. And then sometimes the listing agent may get overly optimistic, or let the seller be in control and be like, you know what, maybe we should wait for 2 more weeks. But understand the market, understand your listing price. And it's a case-by-case scenario. In that situation, if there's no other showing, no other offers, it might not be a bad idea to take that first offer, or at least negotiate with the first offer. So the point is, some listing agent, especially if they don't handle too many listings or they are part-time, they may intentionally or unintentionally tell you to wait off while you should take that offer or negotiate with that offer. Pro tip, don't just focus on the price. The terms, the certainty of how the buyer can perform is also very important. So look into that, not just the price. Bonus, some red flags to look for when you're talking to your listing agent. Sometimes if they don't go over like how they came up with the price, it's important to know your comp, okay? To have them give you that reward. And some agent, they don't give you a plan of action as far as what are they gonna do to get your home sold. So definitely look into that. Also, some agent, they may tell you, oh, I sold so many homes, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Look at their track record. Some of them may be making things up. And if they push back when you're asking them questions, push forward and keep on asking them questions. If you feel fishy, trust your gut. Doesn't hurt to talk to 2 to 3 agents to get the one that you feel that is right. I will say this, most agents are good at their job. but the great one will tell you the hard truth. Sometimes you don't want to hear it, but I give the analogy like when you're going to a doctor or a lawyer, do you want them to tell you everything is fine, where actually you need a surgery right away, right? Or you need to face this situation with more serious attitude or tone rather than just it's fine, it's fine. I don't know about you, I prefer people telling me the hard truth. So how we operate our business is the same thing, because truth can set us free, and usually they can help us move forward to where we're trying to get to, rather than just hearing the things that we want to hear and be at the same place and not being able to move. So if you're thinking about selling your home in California, just reach out. I'll give you a straight answer on what to do, what to price at, what to repair, with a straight answer without sugarcoating. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please hit the subscribe button so that way you can see our future videos. I'll see you soon.